If I could, is this on? Testing. Could you please take your seats? We will start shortly. Thank you. Good morning. It is now 11:30, and I would ask the meeting to please come to order. My name is Peter Bentley, and I am a director and chairman of a board of Canfor Corporation, and will be acting as chairman for the meeting. It's a great pleasure for me to extend a warm welcome to all of you today for the 27th annual general meeting of Canfor. As a public corporation. At this point, it's a great pleasure to introduce our President and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Jim Shepherd, who is seated beside me, and I will be calling on Jim to address you later. With your indulgence, I propose that any questions that you may have be reserved until after you've heard from myself and Jim, unless the questions relate to the motions that are on the floor. Also seated at the table is David Calabrigo, Vice President, Corporate Development, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary. David Calabrigo will act as Secretary of this meeting. I would now like to introduce to you our directors and ask them to each stand and remain standing till they've all been introduced. Mr. Ron Cliff, Michael Korenberg, Jim Pattison, Conrad Panett, Jim Shepherd, President and CEO, Max Singleton of Myrtle Beach, Tom Tooch of Toronto, and Don Selman, who is unable to be with us and sends his regrets. Thank you very much. They've all worked hard, and we appreciate their wise counsel. While we have expressed my personal thanks to them, I would be remiss if I didn't on this occasion thank Messrs. Don Selman and Tom Tooch on your behalf. Messrs. Selman and Tooch will not stand for re-election this year, and I would like to acknowledge their contribution to the board. I'm also pleased to introduce Messrs. Glenn Clark and Ross Smith. I'd like them both to stand if they would. Thank you. Who have consented to stand for election as directors of our company. Thank you, gentlemen. Glenn and Ross, we're delighted that you've accepted our invitation to be here today and to let your names stand for election as directors of a company. At this point, however, I want to express my appreciation for the contribution that all the company's personnel have made during a most difficult past year, and to introduce to you the other officers of a company. Dealing with them alphabetically, Alistair Cook, Vice President, Capital Projects. Mark Feldinger, Vice President, Wood Products Manufacturing. Ken Higginbottom, Vice President, Forestry and Environment. Don Kane, Vice President, Wood Products Marketing. Tom Sitar, Vice President, Finance and Chief Financial Officer. Rob Stewart, Vice President, Human Resources. And also with us today is Paul Richards, President and CEO of Canfor Pulp Income Trust. I appoint CIBC Mellon Trust Company to act as scrutineer for the meeting. I would now like to call on Mr. Calabrigo to deal with the notice of this meeting. I will now ask the secretary to read the preliminary scrutineer's report. Thank you. As chairman, I adopt the scrutineer's report and declare their attendance at this meeting to be as they have set forth. In accordance with the scrutineer's preliminary report, I declare quorum present and the meeting to be duly constituted for the transaction of business. I would ask all those who have kindly agreed to move and second motions to also be kind enough to give their names and to state that they are shareholders or proxy holders. As you know, there are certain necessary motions that must be made and seconded. In order to help expedite the meeting, some of the shareholders have graciously agreed to make or second these various motions, but it is in no way intended to inhibit any questions or discussion with respect to the motions. The minutes of the last meeting of shareholders are available for perusal by any shareholder. Unless someone wishes them read, I will entertain a motion to take the minutes as read and to approve them.
I'm Ian McKeever. I'm a shareholder of the company. I move that the minutes of the annual general meeting of the members held on May 2nd, 2008 be taken as read and be approved.
Thank you, Mr. McIver. May I have a seconder?
My name is Sandy Sine. I am a shareholder of the company. I second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Sine. You've heard the motion. All in favor, please signify in the usual manner by raising your hand. Contrary? Carried. The next item of business is to place before the meeting the consolidated financial statements of the company for the year ended December 31, 2008, together with the audit report and the report to the directors and the members. These statements and reports are contained in the company's annual report, which has been mailed to all shareholders, and copies are available outside the room. Unless there's any question, I will regard the statements and reports as received by the meeting. The next item of business is the election of directors. The meeting is now open for nominations.
My name is Renee Villeneuve. I am a shareholder of the company. I nominate Peter J.G. Bentley, Glenn Clark, Ronald L. Cliff, Michael J. Kornberg, James A. Pattison, Conrad Pinette, James F. Shepard, J. Mac Singleton, and Ross Smith as directors of the company to hold office until the next annual general meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Villeneuve. Are there any further nominations? Thank you. The persons nominated are management's nominees for election, and as was stated in the information circular sent to the company. There being no further nominations, I declare nominations closed. As only the required number of persons have been nominated, I declare that those persons nominated have been duly elected by acclamation as the directors of a company to hold office until the next annual general meeting. The next item of business is the appointment of auditors, and is management's recommendation that the present auditors be reappointed. May I have a motion to that effect? Thank you, Mr. Cliff. May I have a seconder?
Chairman, my name is Patrick Elliott. I'm a shareholder of the company. I second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. You've heard the motion. All in favor, please signify in the usual manner by raising your hand. Contrary? Carried. I declare PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP Chartered Accountants be appointed auditors. It has been my privilege to serve as Canfor's chairman for 26 of the 27 annual general meetings since the company became a public company. 2 years ago, I missed attending as I was in hospital, and Ron Cliff kindly chaired that meeting. He did so well that I am pleased to inform you today that Ron will be the new chairman of Canfor Corporation. Congratulations, Ron, and best of luck. I will remain on the board and become chairman emeritus. I want to assure you that I will lend him my full support, and as stated in my message to you in our annual report, I shall continue to be dedicated to Canfor's future business success. The current downturn is the worst that I can remember in my over 55 years in the business, and I want you to know how fortunate we are to have Jim Shepard, our President and CEO, leading our hard-working and talented team. They are supported by all our employees, many of whom have regrettably been hit very hard by the actions that the company had to take to ensure our survival and future success. I now would like to call on Jim Shepard, the company's President and Chief Executive Officer, to make a few remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, fellow shareholders. Thank you for coming out today. This is a very difficult time for shareholders, and your forbearance is appreciated. Looking at this economy, I would like to say the worst is over. I'd like to say that we're at the beginning of the end with certainty, but I can't. But at least I can certainly say that we're at the end of the beginning, and some might say that's progress. 2008 was a challenging year for the company, as we reported a net loss of $345 million, or $2.42 a share. Included in that total are significant non-operating losses for asset impairments and foreign exchange. But after considering those and other unusual items, the company still recorded a loss of $128 million, or 90 cents a share. Our 2008 loss from operations was $158 million. That was an improvement of $115 million from 2007. Even so, that was a very significant loss. The very weak markets took their toll, with prices for nearly all of our SPF and SYP grades well down from the previous year. Operationally, we took significant action to try and offset those market revenue losses. We reduced lumber production by 800 million board feet, or 20%, compared to the prior year, and some 30% less than our rated capacity. These reductions come from indefinite closures, reduced shifting, and periodic curtailments. At the same time, we lowered overall manufacturing unit costs by 14%, a challenging feat by any measure in the face of reduced production levels. Our panels business faced similar challenges in 2008. At year end, the only operation still running was the Peace Valley OSB plant, which we have a 50% interest in. The pulp and paper segment was profitable again in 2008, but earnings were down due to raw material cost rising and due to the rapid deterioration of the market conditions late in the year. We continue to be prudent with our cash, and through vigilant working capital management and a moderation of capital spending, we actually increased our cash balance over the year by $67 million to end 2008 with $362 million. We also expanded our operating bank facilities in 2008 and early 2009 to improve our liquidity position. Consistent with how our year went, in May 2008, our North Central Plywood plant facility was consumed by a catastrophic fire. We are pleased to say that there was no serious injuries. We've decided not to rebuild the plant, so the insurance proceeds received can fund other capital projects in the future. This morning, we have reported our first quarter results for 2009. We reported a net loss of $59 million, or 41 cents a share. This loss reflects a further deterioration in markets, as highlighted by the benchmark SPF 2x4 price dropping another $37 or 16% from the already low levels of the fourth quarter. With no market improvement evident in the quarter, we have developed an even more intense cash preservation objective for 2009 that will ensure we preserve a positive cash position throughout 2009 and the first quarter of 2010. The plan includes significant reductions in working capital, cash costs, capital spending, and selling surplus land. It does not rely on any significant recovery in market prices in 2009. One of my interests is a study of the history of the 19th and the 20th century. A book I am reading right now refers to the First World War, which was originally believed would be a relatively short affair with a few cavalry charges by the military leaders of both sides. They never thought that they would end up digging 35,000 miles of trenches and spend 4 years in pitched battle. What started out as a test of endurance became a test of survival. Our industry has also gone from a test of endurance to one of survival. And Canfor is well positioned to emerge from this challenge as an even stronger leader. I say this because, through our focus on our cost reduction and selected market channels, we have been able to achieve our goals for cash management to maintain our relatively strong balance sheet. In these times, this is vital, because your cash is your blood. Hold on to it, and that's our focus. In response to the continuation of the weak lumber market, and now exaggerated by the global economic recession, we have chosen to continue the cash conservation measures we adopted for 2008, namely, Board of Directors fees reduced 50%, CEO salary reduced 25%, all of which, by the way, is in Canfor stock. Executive salaries reduced by 15%, management by 7%, all other salary by 3%. In 2008, we sold the corporate jet. Earlier this year, we sold the panel and fiber property, and we plan to sell other properties later this year. We also have aggressive plans to reduce our inventories, both for logs and finished lumber. John F. Kennedy was president when I started my business career, so I've seen a number of business downturns, but nothing like this. I will, however, say that I am optimistic about this industry, and especially this company. It is becoming increasingly obvious that the sources of SPF fiber in Canada are shrinking. For example, Ontario and Quebec's annual allowable cut has been reduced by 20%, and that is likely to go further down still. BC's cut will go down once the mountain pine beetle harvest is complete. Other areas of fiber sourcing will face similar challenges. When this reality is stacked up against the growing global need for wood frame home construction, we have an interesting economic equation of growing demand versus a shrinking supply source. That will likely put lumber into a position as a highly sought-after commodity that should provide a sound and healthy price base. That should translate into a good return for shareholders. In closing, I would like to express my appreciation to the people of Canfor. They are a primary reason we've been able to manage our cash position so well and I wish to thank them for their cooperation and contribution. And finally, to you, our shareholders, thank you for your support and your patience. As a fellow investor in Canfor, I wish to assure you the fundamentals of this company are strong. The people, the fiber source, the mill network, and the customer support is very sound and will ensure that our investments will be rewarded when the recovery comes. Thank you all for attending. Mr. Chairman, that completes my remarks, but let me just add this, please. Today is an historic moment for Canfor because today, Peter Bentley, the son of the company co-founder, steps down as chairman after 55 years in the company. It should be noted that our chairman's leadership through the years contributed very significantly to Canfor's two fundamental strengths: our highly valued and highly committed workforce and our loyal customer following, made up of the most sought-after home center and pro-build companies in the business. Please join me in a warm thank you to Peter Bentley for a job well done.
Thank you very much, Jim. If there are any questions, this would be the appropriate time in the meeting to ask them. Could you please go to the microphone, give us your name, and whether you're a shareholder?
Hubert Bunsen, I'm a shareholder. They aren't really questions, but reading your Canfor annual report, I was very impressed by the work of David Calabria and what he had done in putting it together. I was also very impressed by the various cuts which Jim Shepherd has just outlined to the various people of the company, how much they cut back on their salaries, particularly about a month or so ago when one was hearing how people in the States were getting handouts from the government, and they weren't taking cuts. They were taking more money out of their company. So I think it's very creditable to you that you've been strong-minded and reduced your own interest. The other thing I would like to mention, and this is maybe not such a good time, although I believe it is the 70th anniversary of the company's founding, that 2 or 3 years ago I suggested that it would be great if a history of the Canfor was written. And at that time, I believe you said there was a personal family history written, but for some reason or other, you didn't think it was appropriate to initiate historical report, the record of Canfor. Now, one of your employees, Stan Chester, one of your ex-retired employees, he is president of the BC Forest History Association. And I suggest that you might, if you are so inclined, might consider talking with him if you feel inclined, as a history of Canfor would be worth doing. And the other topic, I'm sorry I'm taking so much of your time, but I did have the temerity to write a little limerick about Canfor. I might read it to you. There's a well-known forest company called Canfor that has done lots and then some more. It has come near to a fall, but still stands very tall. Does that grand old company, Canfor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the limit and thank you for your comments.
Well,
hi, my name is Josette Weir. I'm a shareholder. This question relates to environment policy of Canfor. In June 2008, the BC Ministry of Environment made publicly available on the web a long-awaited study, a literature review of the effects of glyphosate-based pesticide on amphibians. Those are pesticides that Canfor uses extensively, Vision, Vantage, Vision Maximum. There are 8 pages of bibliography of the most recent scientific findings. This is a serious study. There's 2.5 pages of gaps of knowledge for a pesticide that's been used for more than 20 years. Shameful. And the conclusion is that the silviculture use of glyphosate needs to be re-evaluated with respect to non-target impact on amphibians in BC. So when I informed the Houston management, pesticide management, the CAN4 Houston pesticide management about this, what's this response? We're meeting our company's, we're not going to change anything. We're meeting our company's commitment to comply with or exceed legal requirements. How do you reconcile CAN4's environment policy, which states we're committed to responsible stewardship of the environment throughout our operations, with knowingly spraying products which will have detrimental effects on amphibians? Amphibians is not just amphibians, they are biodiversity. This is my question.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say that I and my colleagues are very proud of environmental leadership that CAN4 has always shown in our industry. But to be more specific, I'd like to call on Ken Higginbottom, our Vice President, to more specifically answer your question. Could you just give the microphone to him for a moment? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Weir, thank you for coming and asking the question. We believe, as Mr. Bentley has said very strongly, in the environmental commitments that we've made as a company. We have been one of the first in Canada to have all of our operations certified under third-party audited environmental standards. We would never consider using a pesticide such as glyphosate. For many of you, you recognize it as Roundup, is the formulation used in gardening and that kind of thing. Vision is the formulation used in forestry. We would never consider using it without having been satisfied that scientific work that allowed it to be registered for this kind of use was credible, nor would we consider using it in a way that would be outside the rules that exist for its use with respect to the protection of water courses and other such kinds of considerations. We do, however, believe that in order to have a sustainable forest in the province, that under certain circumstances, and we don't look to try to use herbicides any more than we have to, but under certain circumstances, that it's appropriate to use them in order to protect the seedlings that we have so carefully planted.
Thank you, Ken. You have another question?
I want to bring up the story of MSMA, where CAN4 didn't shine at all. MSMA is a pesticide that has arsenic, and I brought up in 2000 new scientific finding that showed exactly what we're discovering with Roundup, that it's not as safe as we've thought. And I take issue with what Mr. Higginbotham said, that we would never consider using a product knowingly with all the scientific finding that says that it is detrimental. They knowingly let MSMA use, because they were present at the Environmental Appeal Board, where I brought the world expert on this pesticide, and they continue to use it. They did nothing. They knew they did nothing. And now, taxpayers' money, we're spending $150,000 to look at the toxic legacy, the poison forest that's been left with the MSMA. And it's cost CAN4 a lot of money, because instead of, as I mentioned, to not burn the contaminated bark, they hired a lawyer, they hired a bot expert to fight everything. So I haven't seen the company being progressive at all in the MSMA, actually downward spiral. And as a shareholder, I'm very concerned of the lack of judgment, the lack of understanding scientific finding and preventing the disaster that we just went through.
Thank you for your comments. You're entitled to your opinions, but I'm not going to go further on this one. Thank you. Are there any other questions? As there is no further business, I will entertain a motion to conclude the meeting.
My name is Carolyn Mullock, and I'm a shareholder of the company, and I move that the meeting be concluded.
Thank you, Mrs. Rulick. Can I have a seconder?
My name is Edith Chan. I'm a shareholder of the company. I second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Chan. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Contrary? Carried. I declare the meeting closed, and thank you all for coming today. We appreciate your presence. Thank you.